23 minutes to 11 on this Thursday morning. Now, if I say the word Wittenoom, what springs to mind for you? Many of our listeners, of course, would know that it would be asbestos. Wittenoom was the town in the Pilbara that in the 1950s and 1960s was indeed Australia's only supplier of blue asbestos, what became known as deadly blue asbestos. Now, the town was closed back in 2007, but since the 60s, more than 2,000 workers and residents of Wittenoom have died from asbestos-related diseases. But, of course, we tend to forget that there is a whole new generation of West Aussies who have never heard of any of this. And I'm talking about this morning because with the wildflower season almost upon us here in WA, the increasing numbers of people touring around the state due to the pandemic and the September school holidays, of course, just around the corner, the number of people hopping into this deadly town every day to improve their social media is alarming, very alarming. In fact, so alarming that the Asbestos Diseases Society of Australia want to send their own warning this morning. And we're joined by the CEO of that society, Melita Markey. Melita, good morning.
Good morning, Liam.
Melita, I know you had an awareness campaign, a safety awareness campaign for Wittenoom slated for November, but you've brought that forward to today. It's so important.
Yes, it is, because as you rightly pointed out in your intro, a lot more people travelling around the state, the best wildflower season in a long time with all the rain. And we have been monitoring social media sites for some time now, given our concern about people posting selfies of themselves in Wittenoom, travelling to it because it's very appealing, because it's seen as an old ghost town. People seem to be unaware of the dangers and are posting videos of themselves in the mine, having fights with the asbestos.
Oh.
And these images have gone around the world, Lynn.
Well, that's truly frightening, isn't it? Picking their way through the tailings. I mean, that's literally dicing with death, playing with death. It
is, and they're just totally unaware.
You know, the other thing is that it is a beautiful part of the world. I mean, geographically, it's a beautiful spot. So people sort of would pull up thinking, oh, this is very nice and quaint, as you say, a ghost town in that sort of backdrop makes for magnificent photographs.
Look, it absolutely does. And our tourists and our people are not alone in thinking this. Back in the late 80s, the government at the time drew up plans to build a resort there, only to have it shelved in 94 after an inquiry showed how contaminated it was. So, you know, there's been lots of thoughts around it. So people can't be blamed for what they don't know and the beauty of it. But we feel it's time to educate a new generation out there to say, look, don't become a Wittenoom statistic. We are still dealing with death on a weekly basis because of the legacy of Wittenoom land, and it's just not good enough.
Melita, I haven't been there personally, but I understand that there are, on the entry and exit points, you know, there are fairly big warning signs, danger signs. Is that correct?
There are some big signs saying you're at risk of lung cancer and asbestos-related cancers. But what happens is, and we actually were contacted by some people just only a couple of days ago that had posted on social media, and we had reposted saying, look, please don't do this. And they said, look, we were just unaware. A group of people were leaving from Karajini after doing a tour through there and said, oh, look, we're going to go overland to Wittenoom and, you know, have a look around, follow us. So they took sort of a trail of campers behind them.
That's amazing.
So this is the way it happens, sort of in an organic manner. People perhaps don't plan to, but they're camping in Karajini. It's very close by. And someone says, let's go and have a look.
Well, always dangerous to assume, but I had assumed that all the tourism operators up there would be the ones, you know, blowing the whistle and saying to people, listen, do not whatever you do, go there.
Well, actually, that's not the case, Liam. We identified in the RAC travel magazine that they listed Wittenoom as number 8 of their top ghost towns. So, and that goes to 50% of Perth. So we contacted them and asked them to fix that, which they did. But they're not really putting anything in their magazine discouraging people not to go there. We need the big operators, as you say, to be really taking this seriously and saying to people, look, don't go there. one of the ways we've looked at it, Liam, is perhaps if people aren't necessarily seeing the urgency of it because it is a disease that develops in 20, 30 years from now. So they probably think, oh, it won't happen to me, or if they're a grey nomad, well, I'll be 90 when that happens, or something like that. But with younger people, that's not the case. They're taking their children there. Yeah. So what we thought was to put a lasting memorial in Karajini to the Wittenoom tragedy. You know, Wittenoom is the worst industrial tragedy or disaster in Australia's history, and we don't have a memorial to it. Thousands of people have died, over 4,000.
It's amazing,
and
isn't it?
If you think about the World Trade Center, they've got a whole city block for 3,000 people, and we've still got people dying. Wittenoom is the tragedy that still keeps giving.
That's amazing.
So we thought about a memorial with all the names there, and then space for more names, a beautiful memorial. And if people can look at that before they're about to take off, it's a reminder, do you want to be a Wittenoom statistic? Well, perhaps you'll sit back and say, look, no, I don't think I want to risk it, because the reality of the tragedy is in front of them.
Yeah, that's a terrific idea, and an ongoing warning, as you say. I was just thinking when you were saying that, I was thinking about places like Bhopal in India. Mm-hmm. You know, similar sort of industrial-sized disaster. I mean, Wittenoom's right up there.
We're second to Bhopal as well.
There you go. There you go.
And what's really interesting, Lynn, is we were tracking some media around this, and the New Zealand Herald only last week published a story warning their citizens, not to go to Wittenoom when travelling around WA.
Gee, well, that's pretty progressive.
It is, and the UK has published something similar to their backpackers, and then a German film crew came to Western Australia a couple of years ago to do a story and warn their tourists, their people who are coming to Australia, because Australia's a very popular destination, and so have the French. Yeah. So it's interesting that other jurisdictions are warning their citizens travelling, but we're not reminding ours.
That's fascinating. Hey, Melita, just a final question. Is there any way to make it safe? As you say, it's still contaminated, very much so. But, you know, with all the tailings and that sort of thing around the town itself, has anybody ever looked into some safe way of spraying stuff on top of it, or closing the mouth of the mine? Or
look, there has been a number of studies, and in fact, we were talking to someone just only a couple of years ago from that relevant government department about how they could remediate it. And part of the discussions were around, obviously, the cost. And it's been looked at a number of times. It was looked back in 1993. It was found to be just a bit hard. But these days, with the technology, with the right people, and sharing perhaps the cost with the companies that cause it, like CSR, it's possible to definitely minimise it. I don't know about fully remediating it because the fibres are so small, but where you've got huge tailings dumped in between the gorges, like storage, definitely an opportunity to do. There's an opportunity to stop the tailings going down millstream in the water when the rains come, building a big cement wall there. So look, there have been discussions, and there are opportunities to take the topsoil off, with a bulldozer. So there are some opportunities to definitely make it a less contaminated place. And also that would help the Banjima people, the local traditional owners who move through that area because it's their land.
Yeah.
So it's a very big topic to discuss, Liam, and I think it's something that we really need to raise. The Wittenoom closure bill is only looking at giving, $1 million to those people who will still have their houses there so they can totally bulldoze the town. But there's no issue about in the bill about, well, how do we stop people going there, the tourists? Let's put some money aside for a memorial to help remember people and also stop that. And also let's look at the cleanup, where do we go from there to make it a place that's less dangerous? Yeah. And perhaps people could go there with a mask and things like that.
And what happens from here? But in the meantime, those warnings are very much in play, and good luck with your awareness campaign. We're more than happy to help you along with it. As you say, it's very important, especially with this wildflower season. Thanks very much, Melita. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Liam. Really appreciate your help.
Pleasure. Melita Markey, the Chief Executive Officer of the Asbestos Diseases Society of Australia, wanting people to remember, please do not even think about going to Wittenoom these coming school holidays or during the wildflower season or beyond. 133882 is our talkback number. We'll take some of your calls in a moment on the morning program.